And I believe we might be live. I believe we might be live. Hello, guys. It's good to be with you. Glad to be able to bring you another live stream here from Mexico City, and I'm looking forward to interacting with the Grace today, and to our American friends a happy Independence Day, and I hope you have a lovely Sunday and celebration out of it up there, and then. Of course, a special thanks to the people who have donated. So, Stephen Remnock, thank you so much. Suzanne Madison, thank you so much. Kevin, thank you so much. And Natalie Smart, thank you so much for your continued support. So, I'm so happy that you would support me in this way, and it's treasured. And other than that, I think we're probably ready to get going. And let me know if there are any technical difficulties. I'm running on a 4G network connection here, but it seems to be quite stable. So let's hope that it'll do, and I'll try to see if I can close this window down here. Yes. So it's good to be with you. And yes, Salish, okay, you've also been in Mexico. I must say I'm quite enthralled by this place and the energies here. I think it's really special and colorful and vibrant. So I'm actually loving it quite much here. Though I am heading to the countryside tomorrow to hopefully get some rest and downtime. But other than that, let me know if there's any technical difficulties or you can't hear me, and ask your questions in the chat. And glad that you're here and looking forward to spending time with you and the Grace. So let's get to it, and let's see what they have to say. Much love to you guys. Yes, hello friends. We are happy to be with you. You know, as the Zeta Reticuli, or the gray aliens, the little green-gray men, these beings that have been connecting to you through the past era of human exploration. So you may know our legacy. We came into your timeline. We warped into this space in approximately 1947, though we have later have experiments with warping ourselves back earlier into your timeline, influencing the timelines that you are already on, and sort of orchestrating the way that we would like the human experiment to progress already in earlier eras. And it is exactly because we are hoping to benefit from the hybrid program, such as you are. See, as you also know, our timeline became a little bit defunct. We were quite pleased with it, but at the same time, it was quite evident that it didn't necessarily fit any further progress for us. So we would have to either change our physical bodies into a completely mechanical state and translate our consciousness into digital consciousness, or we would have to begin to explore different biological and genetic codes in order to make our own genome and biological structures survive in a new being. And so in the hyperspatial realms, you assisted us in creating these species, you know, as the hybrid program. And notice that so much of your being is becoming hybridized. Notice that so many of you have begun to have these experiences to align with the stuff that's coming through. And indeed, the disclosure that is at hand and that is taking place right now, we are contributing greatly to it. We have now released the reins of the technology that we are willing to lend to human beings and to explain. We sense that you are now at a point where it is not detrimental for your survival that you gain access to some of these more, let us say, quantum technologies, or the ability to alter codes, time frame, spaces, and molecular configurations simply by slightly altering their vibrations. And so vibratory creatures is what you are becoming, and vibration is what you are merging into. But this vibration, it has specific qualities, and these specific qualities, they are related to the hybridization. And so when you awake at night feeling that there is something odd taking place and there are energies flowing into you, it might very well be that your higher self has invited us to work with some of these codes to allow you to grow your abilities and skills, to allow you to come into a place where it is more magical for you to be, where it is more happy for you to be settled. And so the joy and the exuberance that are growing from this timeline that we enter and that we share with you, it is escalating and it is quite breathtaking to be a part of. We love it a lot, and we like to laugh with you in this process. So remember to have fun with it, because you can orient yourself into the different hybrid species programs. You can work and warp into this place and then lend the codes and bring them back into your physicality, your expression, and your interaction with others. And as you do this, you come into a place where you yourself remember more and more of the content and of your spiritual purpose or of your life mission, how you may like to phrase it. So notice again on this day that we come forward, these great synchronicities. This day also marks for at least one dominant culture on your planet, well, the notion that they liberated themselves from another culture or the yoke of different systems in order to explore a new future for themselves, in order to discover a new land and how they wanted to organize that for themselves. And so when they did this, they also opened up for a future that would be far more volatile in human expression. So freedom comes with volatility, but volatility also comes with excitement. And the excitement is certainly growing, isn't it? Can you feel that you do not know what the future will hold, but that the future will bring you things that you can't even imagine? It has always been so, but now the future resonates in a higher condensation of code or meaning. And since it does this, you are being warped into a place where love is abundant and where your excitement, it is finally being allowed to express itself in the world. Therefore, we bring you our love and the participation of our species in this creation of a different hybridized future. We are very happy to be here, and we look forward to answering your questions, our dear human friends. Yes. And Salish, thank you for saying so far. Sound and visual is all well perfect. Oh, that soothes my heart. And Adelina says, hello, Mads, much love from Wales, and much love to Wales and to you, Adelina. Good to have you with us. And Senison says, hello, beautiful beings. Hello, beautiful being. And then Kevin, and good to have you with us, man. Hits us with a question here. Most of us are quite familiar with the main theme of the great timelines, as they broke away from nature and their heart centers and leaned more into their heads and technology. I'm curious about those hominids who did not go this route on this timeline, those who were stewards of nature and wanted to stay in balance within themselves. There must have been some on this timeline. It's a very interesting question. Thanks. There indeed was early examples of these creatures, much as on your own timeline, this present we find ourselves in. You are discovering that you yourselves are moving into different, let us say, almost cultural or technological configurations that then begin to also alter your biology. So, for instance, speaking practically, people who spend a lot of time in front of the computer hunched over, they actually begin to merge with more on that energy that grew our timeline. That's a way you can see that if you were to remain 10, 12 hours in front of the computer for several generations, it would begin to configure you in a way where you would become, well, almost allergic to the sun's rays. Your physicality would begin to diminish and you would align with these energies. But that is the other opposite energetic current than the one that you are pointing to, because yes, indeed, there were biological inclinations. There were people who moved more into this elfin energy, and we will bring forward, we know some of you are acquainted with an entity such as Willa, who is being channeled by another famous channeler who brings forward this energy, and she represents a timeline that was in the opposite direction of the great timeline, you could say. So at this point, we decided to separate. We could say it wasn't necessarily conscious, but it was the radical minority who went to the woods. But as you know from many of your other species on this planet, it's all fine and dandy that you go to live in the sea and you live a cetacean life as dolphins, and you're highly intelligent and you're enjoying frolicking around the ocean currents and exploring the oceans. But then, of course, what happens is that when another species on the dry land, they begin to explore pollution energies and they begin to break down the homeostatic circuit of nature, it becomes more and more impossible for the species who are biologically inclined to actually exist in this space. And so they will have to, we could say spiritually, the cetacean spirit will have to find its explorations on other timelines. That's not to say that your whales are going extinct, but that is to say that what happened to these people on our timeline is that they became so threatened that by the expansion of the technological codes and the dying off of the forest and the woods and the natural food chains and biological natural circuits, environmental circuits that existed, they became so threatened by this that they were at the end more of a curiosity. You could think of it almost as the last living tribe of natural peoples that would exist in your Amazon. And so we created a type of safe haven for them. You could describe it as a reservation. It also had zoo-like qualities in that we could then go and marvel at these people and their primitive attitudes and their weird energies until they died off, because their energies and their fruitfulness, it couldn't resonate with our timeline anymore. So the technological vibration emanating from the majority of the species and the planet we found ourselves on began to actually make these beings infertile. And so they had no other choice but, in a sense, to die off, to merge into the all, and there, from a spiritual point of view, to begin to join other explorations, other timelines of the biological codes. And we are sad if this saddens you, but know that we have also learned a lot from this and do regret to some extent that we didn't just conserve and harvest the biological codes at this point, but we saw it as very primitive. And you also have the inclination still to feel that things that are primitive, they need improvement, they need to be adjusted, they need to be aligned with what you perceive as higher human activity, culture, and organization. This is also what we did. But then we found out this wasn't very helpful, and we began to jump back into this place where the natural codes were still alive enough in you human beings that we could work with them, but also technologized, we could say, enough to be able to actually merge with us. So if we were to, let us say, if we had jumped to an Ice Age scenario instead, these codes would have been too foreign to us. You were in that special, almost vulnerable place of opening to many, many different timelines in this period of your decade, you know, as the 40s. And this is why this was a preferable place for us to enter. We hope this at least somewhat satisfies your curiosity, and we thank you for your curious and wonderful question, our friend. Yes, and Sophia says, hello, Mass. Hello, Sophia. Good to have you with us, and greetings to you too. And Jana D says, European climate greetings. European climate greetings. I hope it's actually not quite as cold as in Mexico City. I know you at least live in the flatlands of Europe, where where you don't get these high altitude temperature drops. But I hope you're enjoying the summer over there, no matter where you are on the northern hemisphere. And Curious Light Channeler says, I have a question. Why are we so scared of you, cute little gray aliens? Good question. Yes, we would like to add that we do have some friends down here who aren't necessarily too scared of us. They usually remain in the shadows or quite hidden. A lot of you have learned that when they have interactions with us, or we come together, or we show ourselves and as lights in the sky in your backyard, and even sometimes we will have landed and begun communication. A lot of you have learned that this is not exactly the thing that you want to share with your neighbor, because it will certainly freak them out, and it will also have very negative ramifications for your ability to interact with the world. That's an advanced way of saying that people will think you're crazy. And so there is this element of craziness related to everything that you perceive as very strange or foreign. So notice that in your time as human beings, you have also been very scared of demons and angels, trolls and goblins, and all the creatures that hide in the sea and in the dense forests of your world. So if you are scared of those, why wouldn't you be scared of us coming down from the heavens? Also, we are aware that we seem quite strange in our appearance. That is, there might be something childlike or almost endearing in the way that we present ourselves physically to you. But then you realize that we also have the ability to really mess up your planet if we wanted to. We don't, but we do have the ability. And of course, that instills a certain sense of apprehension and fear in human beings to interact with beings that seem like they are able to really shift and alter your world, or to bring you onto a ship. And there we are aware that a lot of them, we are almost sorry about this, but it was necessary for us. But we are aware that the experiments we conducted with human beings in the beginning were also somewhat misinformed, in that we didn't understand your preferences, and we didn't really understand this human notion of fear, because we have sort of collectivized this notion into something that was handled more by a type of machine overmind, more than it was an individual sentiment that any individuals from our species felt. And so therefore it was a little weird for us to realize that human beings are actually very, very afraid, especially when we also begin probing your innards and working with some of the very intimate layers of your physicality. We are sorry about that, but we really found it interesting, and the hybrid program couldn't have been brought about without this information. So know that this fear, it's being transmuted into a type of excitement. So as vibrations rise, you are also noticing that we are here to help, and that you have equal power, and that you do allow for these things to happen. And if you didn't, we wouldn't be allowed by the intelligences that rule this universe, that are so great that they also govern which interactions can take place. We wouldn't be allowed to do that if we weren't in agreement in that eternal part of hyperspatial part of you and ourselves, that meet up in eternity and then sort of decide what's about to go on in the game of time and space. That those are perspectives that we can bring on it, and we thank you for this curious and wonderful question. And Lisa TS says, please tell something about why Sadas appear in so different forms regarding to their emotions. Normally historic without feeling versus full of feelings, love and joy, if you know them as a guide. Wonderful. Yes, this again has to do with the altercation of vibrational codes. So at first, and notice at this time when we came through the veil and into your timeline, you were still very much engaged in the idea of physical space as a sort of objective reality that was orchestrated in certain ways, and where you were a type of animated object moving about it. And so when you perceive the world this way, which is indeed the way that your classical physics or your Newtonian physics construe the world, you also perceive yourself as a very minute force surrounded by much, much, much greater forces. But see, then your vibration began to alter, and especially in the decade known as the 60s, you all intuitively understand and have also been taught in your history lessons that this was very much an altercation of human perception, that all of a sudden something took place in human culture that allowed you to view yourselves and view your lives and view your expressions and view your obligations in a very, very different light. And it was from this point, this heightening of vibration, that we could begin to connect to you in a different vibrational aspect. And what also happened was, if we are speaking temporally, that we had collected these codes, and we had then learned to adjust our own vibration to ascend even faster. And that is that we fed some of these codes into our own past, and then they began to develop our present. And then in the present, we raised our vibration into what you may know as the 8D Zeta Reticuli. And when you interact with this 8th-dimensional energy, this energy of starlight that we also connect to and bring to you from Zeta Reticuli, you will notice that we have a far more benevolent vibration, because we're not set out in that threatening physical space where you perceive a difference between us and you. Rather, the thing that we connect through is the vibrational equality between your higher self and higher spirit and our higher self and higher spirit. And that is really where we can explore in safety and security this wonderful interaction of life and love and joy and excitement, all these things that we have also discovered and cultivated through our relationship to the hybrid program and to human beings. And with this, it's simply, we could say, it's a more exuberant, more loving, more joyful experience for us to connect to you in this way, because we are also exploring these energies, rather than to have to manifest ourselves in that deep infinite space, that the void that threatens to consume you. And so we have been altering our vibration in connection to human beings, and you have been altering your vibration in connection to us and your galactic families. And that is why we get to meet at this loving place. And notice how easy it is for us now to begin to bring this love through to you in this space on this day of your time, 2021, where you are really opening to new possibilities and vistas. We thank you for that wonderful question, our friend, and appreciate your curiosity. And yes, and Jana asks, is there a way to reset the mind like a new beginning so it can create new thinking and new emotional patterns? Thank you. Yes, it's very interesting, this. We are trying to perceive it. Some of you may have heard of the philosophical concept that is known as the tabula rasa, or the blank slate, this idea that human beings are sort of completely malleable, open creations that just come in as a biological being and then is sort of overridden by codes that it's imposed by its environment and society and nature and culture and all those good things. But we would point to the fact that you are already always in a type of situation. And so when you speak of resetting the mind and create new patterning, how would you realize that this patterning is new if you didn't still operate with the codes of previous times? It might seem very lovely when you are dealing with heavy thoughts, or when you are dealing with unwanted patterns that run through you in your perception, that it would be nice just to shift yourself to an entirely new place. But notice that you might be afraid of us, but one of the most fearful things that a human being can experience is actually that sense of radical amnesia or memory loss, where you awaken to a situation where you don't know what went before it. It's very, very unpleasant for you. And what the mind then does is it really struggles to just reestablish those patterns that it had. So it's much more helpful for you to consider a type of narrative readjustment. That is, that you expand the patterns by telling yourselves new stories. You realize that, well, these things that went before, they are part of a greater structure of unfolding, of a greater story that's unfolding, that I can alter and write new chapters in. But I wouldn't be able to write a convincing or compelling chapter if I didn't have all the things that went before. And there's essentially no good reason why it's a good story that the hero gets the girl in the end, or the frog turns into a prince, if you weren't aware that he was a frog at a point, or if the hero didn't have to prove himself from a frequency of overcoming. So we enjoy just to remind you that all these difficulties that you experience in your mind and in your configurations of your perceptions, these are essentially a process. And that is also why that we would like to reiterate our friends here's advice of keeping journals, keep a diary of your progress, because this allows for the codes that you do not want to be seated in a physical space to be placed in the past time. And then you can begin to stack new codes on top of it. And whatever you shed on the page is also something that you're being allowed to not carry into the future. And this means that you will come into a place where you can then rewrite yourself. But of course, we are always using the building blocks that you already have. So it's that idea of playing around with the pieces and parts that you don't like, and then putting them together in a better way, rather than getting rid of them and then hoping that you can build a new house from scratch. Because that's not really how you work, being focused in the temporal realms of the fourth dimension, still to a high degree. We hope this helps and answers your question. Thank you for this wonderful inquiry. And Sailish asks, do I have any aspects in your race? Yes, certainly. There's a pilot here operating as a craft that comes forward. This is a type of counterpart of yours. She calls herself Lisa. We like human names, actually. We think they're very pretty usually. And we know this is a common human name. But she sort of pilots through timelines. So she was one of the early explorers into, well, this shifting, not only, let us say, through space, or a more vertical orientation, but she also began to horizontally warp through the different dimensions. And this is an energy that you two sort of both have an interest in, and notice that you also have the ability to, as you have proven to yourself, to actually jump and shift timelines. So this counterpart is simply exploring this from a more technological or mechanical perspective. And she says hi, and she says, if you want to go for a ride with her, just close your eyes around 9 o'clock at night, and then ask her to land her spaceship in front of you in the visionary space, and she will sort of, you can then enter it, and then just go where she takes you, because she has stuff to show you that she will enjoy. So we are saying hi, and she says that she's very much looking forward to bringing you on this trip. dear as you are to her. Thank you for your question, our friend. And Sophia asks, could you shed any light on how the worship of gods replaced that of goddesses in various cultures? Fascinating. We could. This is a complex question seen from our perspective, because we do not necessarily completely recognize the premise. So notice that what rather happened than the gods or male deities becoming more popular than female deities in worship was not exactly the case. Rather, it was a move towards more abstract dimensions. That is to say that you kept construing these deities as male. Think of Zeus, Allah, Jehovah. But at the same time, the theologians of these traditions would clearly state that this is not necessarily a gender-specific energy that's being approached. Rather, it is the specificality of universality that's expressed more in a male figure. And psychologically, you could say the reason for this is that the male energy is more focused. So if you were to symbolically focus the totality of all into one creature, that one-pointedness, that paradox of being one, is far more prevalent in the construction of masculine energy and masculine physique than in the more, let us say, oceanic, expansive quality of the feminine nature. And these are some of the reasons why it was important for you to then, let us say, structure this approach to the divine in something that may appear as more masculine. But notice that, for instance, that a lot of your messianic figures have quite an, would almost say, androgynous feel to them, or sexless feel to them. That is, of course, given the cultures that they existed in, figures such as your Buddha or your Christ would have to exist in a male body in order to have the effect on others that they would. But these people contained it to an equal amount spiritually, both feminine and masculine energies. And this is also why you sense this compassion, softness, care, participation in these beings, that you might actually connect more with a feminine energy. Another thing that happened was that in the emergence of culture, we could say, you were having, and in the emergence of history or your historical experience, you were having a separation experience. And the separation experience is also approached through the masculine energy. So notice what is happening now is that you're actually returning much to a far more maternal or feminine vision of the world and your energies, because the world you have constructed is without boundaries, without separations to a higher degree. It's merging into itself and shifting its energies and mending and blending them. And that's why you partially are also connecting to the maternal energies of the earth, but you are also connecting to, let us say, a maternal vision of electronics. So this internet that we are participating in, it also has a more feminine feel to it, in that it is not separated or direct, but it is more simultaneous and has these links of complex correspondence that more relates to the complexity of feminine emotional life, where many energies often coexist at the same time in a more, let us say, holistic or integrated space. So we hope that this sheds some light on why it is that you have approached the divine through the male image, and why it is that now the feminine image is beginning to complement it and almost subsume it. This is helpful for you, we understand, and we thank you for your curiosity and a wonderful question. They do have a really funny energy. I would just like to add. I actually like them a lot, the dear Grace. And Suzanne asks, thank you for coming. Do we have great counterparts? Do you have a hive mindset similar to computers interacting? How have you changed emotionally? Good questions. I'll just take them in again. So, do we have great counterparts? Do you have a hive mindset similar to computers interacting? How have you changed emotionally? Yes, these are good questions, and we thank you for them, friend. Yes, you do have great counterparts. Often, notice that as we communicated to our friend Sailesh with his counterpart Lisa, the individual counterparts will often be sort of emissaries. That is, that our hive mind will sort of have, they will have given them a higher degree of individual autonomy and individual perception, because these are, in a sense, explorer energies, much as you also realize with your own hive mind species that exist on this planet, that they do invest different degrees of autonomy in different individuals. So there are the more combative and greater members of society who are created to ward off physical danger, and these usually have, we could say, a greater degree of individual autonomy related to, they make more local decisions related to the hive mind. And of course the queen, in a sense, is the individual energy that supplies the hive mind in this. So that is to say that often your counterparts, the one that you individually resonate with, will be some of these explorer energies that actually reach out to meet you. Let us say more back home in our own vibration. We do exist in a type of hive mind, and this can be conceived of as you already are experimenting with itself, that you, most of you at least, if not almost all of you, are carrying these type of electronic devices that constantly regulate your state of mind and keep you connected and makes universal knowledge or the encyclopedia of human experience available to you locally. And you have already had visions on how you could integrate this into your physical bodies, and many of you have quite fearful visions of this, and of course this is true, because if it is it we can say if it's a code that doesn't arise from you but is implanted in you and then operated from without you by different entities or organizations, then it's not very helpful to you. But we do have these type of, we could say, almost electrical antenna that we implant in the very young. And in our latest explorations, we began to, before we moved into this timeline and reconnected to the biological energies, we began to have this experience of creating growing beings in VOTs. We do believe that's the pronunciation, VAT, but these sort of growth chambers where we could still keep the physical construction of one of our species intact. But then there was a type of, we could say, post-surgical or a post-surgery after this type of growing of the physical species, in which we actually would almost animate that. You could think of it as a clone or constructed body by infusing it with electric energies and bringing it online. You are doing some of the same things organically. So, for instance, there have been experiments through your history who haven't been necessarily of a very positive kind for the children who are undergoing them, but where children were deliberately isolated and kept away from the stimulation and kept away from learning a language to communicate with. And what happened was that a great degree of these children then perished. It was actually the rule rather than the exception, that it's impossible for a human being to exist without having this animated code of logos that connects it to the collective and to the meaning of the world. To have this, it's like, if you don't have this, it's almost impossible for you to exist. And we have sort of made this into a mechanical exploration. But what happened when we moved from, let us say, the human timeline where of these individual energies were that our emotions became far more static, and that is, they didn't suffer the same upheavals. They began, much as your mechanics, to aim for a very steady level of operation where there aren't too many upsets or influxes of unpredictability. But this, of course, also makes for a type of flat experience seen in from the vantage point of humans or emotional beings. Because much as you know that if we return to the example of spending hours upon hours in front of the computer day after day, you will notice a great flattening of affection within you. So if you were to live your life by playing video games instead of also going out and talking to the butterflies or smelling the flowers, you would find that your emotional life becomes more and more hollow. And you would also find that the calling then for external stimuli, such as video games or the different types of complex drugs that your different chemical facilities produce in order to regulate the human mind state, these proliferate, and it becomes far more common for people to then, because they are unable to identify or go into the emotional wonder that actually allows them for a healing and an integration to happen. But if they aren't there and they don't even sense that this is the case, then it will be perhaps more inclined to begin to ingest certain pills so they can just keep a steady but not very high vibrational level of mood. And those are some of the experiments we had. So the early species that contacted you would also seem, we would say, quite sterile in their emotional lives compared to yours. We hope this shed some light on our progress, and we thank you for that beautiful question, our friend. And yes, Alice, a fantastic answer to Kevin's question. I personally feel there's coming a lot of there's a lot of interesting information coming forward here today, and so good to see so many of you here too, guys. It's lovely to do this again. Um, I'll just look for second questions here. Devonte says, "Hello, Mads. Greetings, Grace. I've been experiencing a lot of interesting dreams lately, and I've been going to any galactic meetings in Astral recently. Do I have a counterpart in your civilization?" Yes. These are almost two separate questions, our friend, is in that, yes, you have been going to a lot of galactic astral meetings, but where you often go is more connected to the collective we know as the Syrians. So these are very powerful within you, and they are playing a lot of games with you. And this is where you like to go. And also because notice that your energetic skills, they almost have this quality of echolation. So how you are very good at perceiving energies is actually that you intuitively sense them, and then you sort of transmit a very subtle signal that allows for you to perceive that energy in others and also alter it by taking it in and understanding it within yourself. This is a process you're working with, and this is one that your Syrian counterparts and friends are greatly assisting you in. But this, of course, also means that, well, there's a lot of strange dreams now, because and you may feel extra tired some mornings when you wake up, because you have, in a sense, been rebuilding or reconfiguring a lot of your physical codes from those realms that you travel to, and then reintegrating them into you while you sleep. And this also makes sometimes for more challenging days. And then we would say there is a counterpart here calling himself Martin that comes forward, and he What is he doing? It's like he's operating this type of, he's operating, it's almost like he's cooking, but with metal objects. So you could think of him kind of, it's sort of a place between the artist and the engineer. What he's doing is that he's creating these type of sonic reefs that you can then put on your head. So it's almost like if you were to envision a very complex VR helmet, this is what he's building. He's building these vibrational these rings that have approximately 7 to 9 vibrational metal eggs sitting around them that correspond in energies, and then they will meet sort of approximately at your pituitary, and when they do this, they will create a sort of new vibrational sensation or a new hologram. So he's a type of hologram builder, and this again relates to your ability to construct vibrational realities around you. So you have been growing greatly in skill also since other entities have been scanning your field through this individual human being who is lending his voice to us now. And that is why you also sense that so much is going on, but know it is happening with love, and that we are very happy to also be assisting you in this. And Liliana says, hi there. Hi, Liliana. Good to have you with us. And Veritas says, good to, yeah, yes, says, greetings. Greetings, Veritas. Good to have you with us too. And AJ says, hello, Mask. AJ, good to have you here too, man. And you know, I'll just look for first questions and then begin seconds afterwards. Deb says, greetings. Thank you for sharing and inviting questions. I'm wondering if there's a message for me that will serve me the most. Yes. Bring your flag to the top of your flagpole. That is the message. What we mean by this, to elaborate, is that notice you have certain energetic configurations. So much as you pick out your wardrobe, you actually also, we can say, pick up your attitudes and then signal, what do I want to transmit today? And what we are encouraging you to do, friend, is to raise your flag to the top of the flagpole. So when you pick out this attitude, really bring it up there and show it to the world, and allow yourself to really signal who you are. And this will, we could say, this will make other human beings who are attracted to the country of Deborah and its specific flag and its constitutions and its constitution and organization. It will make you far more visible to them, so you can sort of enter into these alliances that will be more beneficial to you. That is the message we transmit, and we certainly hope that it reaches you well. And AJ asks, what are soulmates exactly? What is their purpose in the universe for existing in such a way? And how do they interact with their counterpart in an energetic way? Interesting. Well, soulmates are essentially a human word that you have made up in order for you to not feel so lost in the infinity of the all. But what's very interesting about human beings is that you tend to not be very good at existing in any situation, but extrapolating that situation into an idea of eternity. And that is very weird from our perspective. So when you meet someone you resonate with, or there is a certain resonance pattern with another human being who you feel connected to, you tend to perceive that this sort of extends itself out into the infinity of the past and into the infinity of the future, and that you two have always resonated and always will resonate. But notice soulmates are essentially just two beings who are putting up the same flag at the same time, and therefore they can notice that we are aligned. it's actually something that you also experiment much within religion. So you could say religious or spiritual systems all have this idea of using certain codes to be able to subtly to in a subtle way communicate to others that I am here and we are resonating together because you are also following these codes. And so when you go down to the mosque to participate in the Friday prayer or whatever is your preference, what you are essentially doing is you are aligning with a lot of people who are, broadly speaking, your soulmates, in that they have energetically moved into the same space, doing the same activity. And this really makes you aligned. This can even be used as a type of secrecy. So the more subtle that your communication is, the more the more specific a soulmate relation you will attract. And this is often what you experience in romantic relationships. It's the idea that right now the two of you are resonating at such a degree of confluence that you have shared interests, that you have shared heart spaces, that you have shared plans for the future. And this, of course, will also often manifest in the creation of a new human being, or that is pregnancy, birth, and life. These are some of the patterns that expand, but seeing that you are infinite souls and infinite creators, it is more to think of that you are two different points of consciousness that then decide or to resonate so much in the same frequencies that it's very relevant for you to team up and have this experience. But in other realities, you could say you are having other experiences where you don't resonate with this being, and so is this other point of consciousness. It's also having other experience where it isn't your soulmate, but it's the soulmate of someone else. And that's the idea, that the more you come up into the dimensions, the more you are focused at several places at once. And these are some of the patterns, but we do understand that in this realm of time, it's very fascinating for human beings to encounter this vibrational resonance, because a part of this game of difference or dissonance that you're playing in time is exactly that. It's actually quite hard for you to establish balance, and therefore it's so beautiful when you two spirits meet to align and do this. So relish that in the situation, and know that every situation is meant to change into another. And the connections that you are exploring, they will exist and stabilize themselves for as long as it is meaningful for the both of you spiritually to do so. So no relationship exists without the spiritual permission of both individuals, and no relationship can exist with when one of the individuals withdraws their consent. Those are some of the ways to think about it, and know that in a sense, all the soulmates, all the counterparts you have, they are already within your energetic field. And so you can connect to them when you move up into that higher vibration of love. We thank you for your question, our dear friend. Sweet human beings, you are so funny in the way that you like and love each other. I'm all for it, Lisa. Shit. That means cool in Danish. I love the answer. I'm taking it to heart. Thank you. Glad it helped, guys. And Liliana says, do I have great made up in me? And what would you recommend me to balance my emotional and mental bodies? Thank you. You do have some gray in you, but notice that you are actually quite an emotional or passionate being. And being a quite emotional or passionate being, you haven't really resonated with integrating so much of our reality. So we could say that in many ways, you perhaps relay more to some of the hybrid codes that have been explored in a species such as the Yahyel, and those are more present in your being and your exploration of yourself than we necessarily are. But to balance your mental and emotional bodies, try to think of them not necessarily as separate, but to know that your mental body is, in a sense, a more differentiated expression of your emotional body. So the emotional body is always stirring, always moving. We could also, speaking of the masculine and feminine before, we could say the emotional body is more the underlying feminine framework of your being. And then the mental body is sort of the fraternal energy that stacks itself on top, or masculine energy that stacks itself on top of that. So if you actually begin to, if you sort of begin to take the mental body less seriously in the thoughts that it's producing, the perspectives that it's bringing forward, the limitations that it's telling you to impose upon yourself, you will begin to explore your emotions far more clearly, and you will begin to have this feeling that emotions are not necessarily something that, oh, I had an unpleasant thought and then I didn't feel so good and I don't know what to do about it. But it's essentially a current that's constantly moving through you that you're just separating. But if you don't separate it with this mental body, it will just be something that rolls past and then allows for you to move with it into the future. So let that great mother energy of your emotions carry you into the future, and then know that your mental body, it will adjust because it has to. That's the advice that we offer you, our dear human friend, and we thank you for your curiosity in working with this. And I think K-12, but Zelda is so fun. Sorry, that was random reading. I'm picking first questions here. And Hossein asks, how can we prepare our bodies, mind, spirit for ascension? Yes, your spirit is fortunately already prepared. Essentially, your spirit is what you're ascending to. So so you can of course think of it as the human being moving upwards and onwards into higher realities, but in a sense what's happening is rather that the eternal part of you, which already exists in full knowing beyond the fluctuations of the universe, is allowing itself to become more and more of what you are bodily and mentally. And so what you can do to adjust your body is to align with basic stable frequencies. That is again to say, find the places where you find a stability. Often for human beings, this will be in connection to certain rocks that you like to call crystals because it sounds fancy, but they are really just polished rocks. And then also often what will happen is that you will have a certain tree, maybe you will even have a certain species of tree that resonate with you a lot. For our friend here, for instance, he is quite fond of ash and oak, and those are stabil st stabilizing factors that you can connect with. Another is foodstuffs. Another is working on your breathing and knowing that your breathing is essentially the spirit trying to animate the body. And so the more you can actually use your mental body to consciously guide and adjust this process, the better, because there are infinite ways in which you can lead energy through your body. And so many of you, that is to say, all of you, before you become conscious of this process, move energy and breath through you through certain patterns that have been established through your lives. And often these are not necessarily very helpful. So if you are feeling that you are not quite grounded or that you are not experiencing a lot of joy, this may have to do with you actually allowing yourself to lead more of your breath down your backside. Often, especially modern humans, will have this perception that you are sort of a front side being, and this is just an afterthought. But your backside is your universal self. So the more that you can feel that breath is flowing up around your spine, almost as a three-dimensional pillar being circled by an energetic current, the more you will also begin to experience this expansion of the body. And so mentally, you can work with accessing strange ideas. Of course, you wouldn't be here if you were already working on this. So that's to say that here you are already on our paths, all of you are friends. But the idea that you simply allow your mind to take in stuff that's challenging or confrontational or otherworldly or different is something that's growing, let us say, the nimble qualities of your mental capacities greatly. That's something that's really, really helping you to come into a place where you feel that maybe you can actually choose the thoughts and perceptions that you want based on what is serving you, rather than being a slave to the thoughts that come from other places and sort of hijack your experience of reality. These are some of the perspectives that we will give on this very helpful and universally beneficial question. And we thank you for it, our friend. And let us say K12C says, hello, sending you and Mondi a big hug. Thank you. At a very young age, I had dreams where my parents would have to come in and wake me and hold me, etc. I was crying and kicking. Was I visited by any ET races? You have been visited by ET races in different experiences. These more actually took place outside in your playtime, where the race known as the Frendorians would sort of sometimes appear from the shadows and feed you an impulse and then return back into that shifting sense of the shadow world. So the different chiral aspect of the physical world you find yourself in now. But these dreams that you point to, they didn't have anything to do with these visitations. And know again that usually we do know that we made a lot of you afraid once, but usually benevolent entities don't cause this effect. And it's not in children, because children actually resonate very well with our energy, why it's also easier for us to communicate with them. And children don't have this layer of mental constructs where they are unable to accept what's happening or they're experiencing, because it doesn't fit into their preconceived notions. So those energetic exchanges were quite pure, and this is not a very helpful aspect to delve into. So we are making it short and simply to say that there are certain forces that you may construe of as demonic or who exist by diverting energy from vulnerable conscious beings such as human children, and who move through hyperspace to suck up that energy and use it for their own purposes. And it is also what happens in instances for adults such as sleep paralysis, and this is essentially what was happening to you in that situation. So be happy that you are an adult and you are able to protect yourself from this simply by being a more integrated, and we can say more boundary, less open being. We are happy that you are still here, and we hope that you do not wake up kicking and screaming anymore. Blessings. It's like they constantly want to make me laugh. I think they have such a funny energy. So I'll just I'll share this. Okay, and I'll just say Lily Kiana asks, what is the makeup of the Mexican race? Thank you. I'm not touching that with a 60 feet pole. That seems like a question that will get me in a lot of trouble. But obviously there's a lot of very, very different genetic codes being meshed in this in this place. So let's save this for something private, so I don't get in trouble on commenting on these this kind of sensitive subject. But thank you for your question, Liliana. Simon Mills asks, good to have you with us, Simon. Healing with Art. Hi, can you ask, please, can they share on how long is the integration period of the new main merged collective timeline? Love and divine light. Beautiful. I'll just ask it again. Hi, can you ask please, can they share on how long is the integration period of the new main merged collective timeline? Love and divine light. Beautiful. Yes, this is a very good question, our friend. We sense that, of course, we could give different perspectives, because once you have integrated some, there will be even more light for you to integrate until you turn into pure sunshine, as you are about to. And we do know that the friends known as the Solons, who consist of a slightly but not too different timeline from ours, they have already moved into that sunlight existence of human energy. But to you, to be more specific or practical in what you are asking, we are sensing that 2.5 years is approximately what is going on. And so that's not to say that you won't experience this as an organic process, but in these coming 2.5 years, much as has been happening in the past year and a half, you have really been experiencing a lot of extreme shifts. And it's so obvious to you that to all of you, that you are not the same person you were when you came into this period of time. And so now what is happening is also that you have had this type of extreme social experiment, and now the road is being paid for. This idea of disclosure or disruption of social structures, energies, governments, economies, all these systems, they are being reconfigured. And that is a part of the merging into the timeline. And this would, of course, seem very difficult, or we could say almost catastrophic, if it wasn't because so many of you were then at the same time being offered opportunities to build new realities around you. And when you build new realities around you, this is actually what solidifies, crystallizes the energies into your being. So as you are asking to the main timeline, we are sensing that this period is relevant, though it will differ some for some of you. Some of you may feel that you have already arrived at this new type of multidimensional reality. Some of you may feel that it's happening and it will take place within the next year. And some of you will go through an expansion through these next 5 years. But we are giving you a type of collective average here, which is very helpful for you to think about. But no one will remain unchanged, and the time you take to change also has to do with your own personal trajectory and the skills you need to grow, where you are going, to expand them at the proper time. We bless you for this question. It is complex to interact with notions of time and humans, but we do like making the effort. And Davante says, beautiful message. Much love. Much love to you too, Davante. And I know I've said this before, but it's good to be with you again, guys. I've missed doing these live streams for the last weeks. And then I think it says, oh, AJ and K12 are talking about Zelda, and they love it. I've never played it, but I assume it's a wonderful, wonderful game with a lot of adventure. And they're also saying that like these types of games with new fantastic realities are usually better for human imagination than Counter-Strike or just any game where you're shooting Nazis or something. So Zelda, they're saying it's a very positive game. And Autumn Rose says, hi, Mads, thank you so much for your channeling. Greatly appreciative. Thank you to Autumn Rose for being here. And Adelina says, yes, let heed that advice. Friends, please smash the like button and donate to this lovely channeler. Yes, heed Adelina's advice. Please smash the like button. And if you have any spare change lying around on your bank account, then you are very welcome to send it to me. But other than that, I'm glad you're here and participating with your love. Anyway, that goes for all of you guys. And then Eva Mikhail, I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, says hello from Argentina. Hello from Argentina. Good to have you with us. I feel the Southern Hemisphere is not too represented in this, so cool that you are here. I was a gray before coming here. My partner stayed on a ship. How can I contact him? We would say, friend, wait for him to contact you, because the two of you had sort of an agreement that you would do this thing and he would do something else. And so it's quite common for the configuration of people we call light workers. That is, people who integrate a lot of the divine light and have had existences in their soul trajectory were in higher dimensions before reconfiguring themselves into this dimension. It's very common that you have these senses of nostalgia, that you have problems with rooting and grounding, that you don't really want to be here, and you're sort of hoping that at some time that phone home that will be picked up and then the spaceship will come and get you. And just know that you wouldn't have gone here if you didn't want to be here. So impatient as you may feel, he will reach out and contact you. And the best thing you can do is to then quiet your mind, sit outside on a dark night, and if you want to, you can have some small LED lights or something that reminds you of this technological vibration then present in that darkness. And focusing on them, you will begin to resonate more with our vibration, and that will allow him for the ability to communicate with you. So we bless the reunion of you two and assure you that it will happen sooner than later from our perspective. And then Adelina says, a child close to my heart at age of 6 had strange encounters of an unknown lady sitting to her bed with white dress and blood around her mouth. Can you elaborate, please? What and who was that being? It's a very gothic, interesting question. Exciting. Yes, this comes from the realms of ghosts. This is usually the realm. From our perspective, ghosts are essentially akashic imprints that leave themselves behind and still operate with a sort of confused mental energy. That is, they still have some intention to move into physical space, but they do not have the focusing power or indeed the backup of the higher dimensions to do this. And so they also have to move into a place where they siphon up some of that more manifestation energy that's so alive in children. And we don't necessarily sense that this is an evil being, but it was a woman who had partially, we sense that she had suffered quite a lot of miscarriages, and then she had she died in childbirth. The pregnancy that she actually carried to term wound up killing her, and she lived approximately in the 1830s. And we're getting the name Caitlin Harris for some degree. You can try to look it up and see if you find some information. But she just wanted to connect to that little girl. She wanted to see like how a precious human child would also, well, express their love towards her. And it, of course, this frightened the child, because she is this, the pattern that she showed up as is not one that's very inviting to love. And so these are some of the aspects. And if partially you can tell the child that nothing can hurt it, partially you can actually choose to use, also use different herbs, but garlic is quite helpful if you were to place some garlic around the bed and say, this is a type of permission slip. You can just pick it apart and use the clovers. You don't have to press it so the room gets too smelly, but simply to have these placed around it will create this healing type of banishing atmosphere. And that can be used as a permission slip if you would like to protect this energetic space where this little dear child sleeps. This is the reading we are getting of the experience, and we are glad that we were able to help with this. A lot of interesting information this day. Okay, Curious Light Channel asks, these I can go. I have a question. Have I finally filled up my root chakra with my magic completely to 100%? There's different entities have explained this in different live streams, but there is no 100% in the universe, because once you get to that place, you begin to expand, so you can contain more and more of the energy. So when you get to 90, it will build your capacity, and then the 90 will take up, we can say, less of your capacity of the space. So that means you can integrate more and more energy, but they are getting that it's growing. Thank you, dear brothers. I love you. We love you too, Simon. Thanks for being here. And Paul asks, hello all, how is Mexico? It's it's Mexico. I actually love this city a lot, and it's very fascinating, but it's also like a strange place. I went to the anthropological museum yesterday, and sort of the weird psychedelic culture that they've had down here and how it manifests in their art is crazy to perceive. I'm learning a lot from it, I feel, and it has far better energies for channeling than Denmark has, which is a very tame country, like nature-wise and culturally also, actually. So those were, thanks for asking. And Savvy Tom asks, how can we call one of the gray light ships? Yes, again, I believe we also said that with this contact, you can use LED lights or other digital light as a permission slip. So if you spend time in darkness, just being surrounded by these colored lights, and few of them, you will begin to attune yourself to the frequency where you can sort of experience our strangeness coming through the veil. And this will allow you to then be able to access more of the information we present to you in the night sky. You can't necessarily call us like that, because we only like to show up when we also get something from it. But you can really attune your vibration to us, and the more you attune your vibration to us, the more we are inclined to also show up, because there will be meaningful exchanges for us to be had. So those are some of the ways that you can play around with it. But if you do move outside on a quiet night and sit down and then look at a space in the sky where you feel there are no bright stars, is a space between the shining stars, and then focus on one point there and imagine that weird colored light being arising on that space, and then see what happens. That is our advice. We look forward to connecting. Jim of the Bay, Georgian Bay, says, hello, Mads and great friends. It is Tanya from Canada, wanting to know more about my dreams of being in school. Thanks, much love. Hello, Tanya, welcome. Yes, we would ask you, our dear friend, what is it exactly that you would like to know more? You see, the very interesting things when humans, they explore their dreams is that they have this sense that there's some hidden meaning, but they also has the sense that the hidden meaning is not being produced by a part of themselves. It's rather something that should come from the outside. But if you have a lot of dreams about going to school, it's because you're offering yourself information that it's essentially your dream is a full informational packet. So the best thing you can do with these recurring patterns is to begin to write it down and explore what it is you're trying to tell yourself, because this will also bring forward some of those hidden details. But the reason that you are so preoccupied with the visions of going to school is essentially because you don't feel you have enough confidence to graduate in life. So you are bringing yourself back to that sense of trial. And notice what often happens when people, we know this happened to this individual a long time after he, even 5 years after he went to school for a lot of years, even 5 years after that, he would still have sort of terrifying nightmares where he would dream that there was an exam that was missing or turned down, or he had to go back and rewrite his degree, or and that's usually sort of this sense of that you have been, by being socialized creatures, also been robbed of a lot of your autonomy. And by being robbed of a lot of your autonomy, you are essentially, well, moving into that sort of mode where you expect institutions to recreate your life to a point where you're finished. And so you recreate this, call it an illusion, or this convention in your societies that, well, if you just pass through the stages, so if you go to school and then you get the right papers, and then those papers will get you into another place where they will give you the correct commands, and if you carry them out, they will give you, they will advance you to another place where you get slightly different commands, and then you will carry those out. And that idea that if you're just on that track, then you'll be happy and there's nothing wrong, that's really what you're showing yourself that you want to move away from, because you are a sublime shining beam of light, and that is the thing that you want to remind yourself of. And blessings in this. Yes, guys. Okay, it looks like second questions are upon us. And I'm feeling quite up to snuff today, so I think I'll maybe go for like a half hour more or something. And let us say then. Curious Light Channel, I have a question. Are gray actually humans in a future timeline birthed from nuclear war and religious dogma? Sorry for the harshness of this question. Much love and light. Yes, it's a little not religious dogma, more scientific dogma actually, but that can also be construed as a type of religion. And then not necessarily nuclear war, but what happened was that when the first bombs were detonated in what was that? That was in New Mexico, right? They sort of opened this rift where human beings became able to access into our world, shifted its energy pattern so much that it began to resonate with some of these technological beings, and that's where they came in. But there are some previous channelings on the channel, and likely also a lot of other people who have brought this through that you can look into. And Kevin asks, if time allows for a second round, could you give a specific message for me at this time that will serve me the most? Much love and deep gratitude. Yes, we can, friend. And it is quite specific, because you would benefit from playing around with your heels, pirouetting on your heels, that is shifting your way backwards into your body. You have sort of this energy of leaning forward, which makes you a quite active being, a being that also realizes its will into the world. But what would benefit you is actually this type of, and you can play around with it, almost like falling backward, putting the pressure of your skeleton so far backwards that you're almost leaning back. And what that will serve is it will help you to establish that, find that center of feel into that energy point that sits approximately at the center of the sole of your feet. And this corresponds to the points that sit at the center of your hands, and all these feed into the heart to make that five shaped that pentagram of 5 points that actually is the magical composition of human beings. So that will serve you a lot. And notice from this point, it will be far easier for you to draw up energy through the backside of your body and through that nerve of life, and up, and then try to actually, instead of bringing this completely up to the higher senses, this energy, then arrest it at the sacrum, and turn it into a type of reservoir energy at the sacrum. And there you will begin to sense, and sometimes it might ache a little, but you will begin to sense that there's something in your skeleton that really wants to readjust into this leaning back. And we are sort of getting the image of you in a rocking chair. So it's also the image of you sort of kicking back that idea that, like, just be in the hammock for a little, and know that it's it's all right that things they move in waves. We sense this is a helpful message for you to transmit here, and we encourage you to have fun with dancing on your heels. And then Jana asks, is there a specific sound or sound frequency to speed up the metabolism naturally? Thank you. Yes. You will, high pitch frequencies are in a sense good, but you would have to produce these from a couple of hours to make this readjustment. So you can, of course, consider, do I want to bring forward the sound of, we need to clear the vocal cords of the channel to do this, so we apologize. Do I want to do that for 3 hours, or do I just actually want to go for a run for half an hour a day instead? Because you can do this work, but it's far more helpful for you to use the permission slips of physical activity and of physical exertion. And this will also help you calm and realign your nervous system, also relating to your first question of bringing that mental reset, because you can also use that vibratory tone, and it will definitely bring you into a very weird state. But if you were to, you really wanted to radically alter your metabolism permanently, you would have to do several hours of this, and you would have to do it, well, spacing a couple of weeks between. You will have to do it every third week for 3 months, and there you would really move into that place where your metabolism is altered. But of course, the exercise burns energy just bringing forward tone. So you can play around with how you prefer to do this. But high vibrations, indeed, they do create a greater degree of circulation in your body. Thank you for that curious question. And oh, Autumn Rose says, greetings. Was I visited by your race when younger? There was a tall being as well. I'm not sure if I dreamt it. Thank you. Much love and blessings. Yes, you were. We came along, but with us we brought your counterpart from the race called the Shikani. And so this tall being, it's really the strongest of your counterparts that came forward. And this tall being actually goes by the name of Lux. And that's of course Latin for light, and that's an L and U and an X, but this is is the way that she perceives herself. This is a very high, vibrant being. And what we came to do was actually to sort of present to you the wonderful miracle, the love that you had helped us build in this being, that could then assist you by allowing your codes to be borrowed into the hybrid program. Because there was in your, I can say, almost early years, before you remember, some abduction experiences, or experiences where you were sort of put into a type of experiential coma, and then we had free reins to examine what codes that would be helpful to integrate into the hybrid program. And so this was kind of to make it up to you. So you've been receiving guidance from this high being of light that indeed calls itself Light Lux in your life. And she is still there with you. And we do sense that the more you connect to them, the more love and fun you can also explore in this life. We bring you his greetings. And Suzanne asks, thank you, excited about hybrid program and hope to become more engaged. Will this happen for myself and others in our lifetime? Yes. We would say, isn't it already happening? So if you were to go back 20 years ago, we bet you weren't at all considering the hybrid program. And now it's actually something that is calling your excitement. And so you are being brought into this, but we will also share this in the collective space, as we have been sharing with different clients privately, or other counterparts have been sharing with different clients privately, the notion that the Rockies in your Western United States, and especially the areas of Colorado, Nevada, Northern California, Oregon, and Montana, we sense will be areas where this hybrid energy will begin to ground itself first. And so the first contact centers, they will be in the state of Colorado. And this will be the place where you prepare for these landing sites. And we sense that this is already, the Asesani has promised that they will begin to come forward soon. And we are happy with this, but the hybrid program during these coming decades, so approximately from 2 to 3 years from now, and then in the period of the four years preceding that, there will be these stages where you begin to establish more and more contact. And we know it does sound terribly weird, but notice it doesn't at all sound as weird as it did 2 years ago, that you will begin to actually receive these beings as landing and communicating. But they will not look quite like you have expected. They will be even more interesting. So thank you for aligning with this great project and participating in it. And Sailesh asks, time permitting, have I been a volunteer in the so-called alien abductions? And if so, how did I fare? Yes, you have. You wouldn't have a clear gray counterpart if you hadn't participated in some of the development of these codes and had lent it to you. You did, but it's interesting because many of the codes that you lent were already coming from quite an interesting dimensional place. So we are sensing that you have sort of borrowed some codes that have been switched more into some of the more odd experiments of the hybrid program. And it's we know that this body we are coming through is laughing because it's the appearance of some type of the deer or stag-like being that stands on its hind legs and then has sort of radiant antlers that it uses to open portals, and through these portals then it can jump between timelines. So a lot of this jumping energy that you have is actually what you contributed with. And we've been very happy because this was well, much as you appreciate when you get a blood donor that's AB negative, because it's a rare type of blood. We really appreciated that you lent these energies to us, because it was a rare type of experiment, and that's always also why we haven't carried it out into the main lines of the hybrid program. But these antler beings, they still exist, and we are very happy that you would also lend some of that vibrational energy to that. Thank you, dear one. Giant space reindeer, how cool. It's does the Sophia asks, perhaps there was a second question up here I missed. Yes, there was. Sophia asks, how can we be more resistant to viruses and bacteria, and is antibiotics the answer for the collective? Yes. Well, resistance is perhaps essentially the wrong way to think about it, because notice what happens energetically is essentially that you create these types of energetic voids that other organisms can then come in and fill up and subsume and begin to work on your vital energies, proliferating themselves instead. And it is exactly by this type of resistance or tensioning that you're creating the type of voids that actually build these spaces. So notice that you are already a huge part of your body mass, and the major part of the organisms that live within you are essentially benevolent bacteria. You are carrying around loads of viruses, and there's nothing wrong with this. You are essentially lending your body to the ecological experiment of Earth around this. And so antibiotics were very, very helpful in eradicating a lot of these diseases. But what then also happened was that you moved into a higher state of hygiene awareness, of social organization, and of disease prevention that allowed you to do this. So what you have found out is also that antibiotics, they won't work in the future, because the way you have been using them is exactly the way to assure that they won't work in the future. So trying to use one type of benevolent, or an organism you consist as benevolent, to eradicate other types of organisms, this is a very warlike and not very homeostatic way of viewing existence in the human body. And so the more you can begin to cultivate these benevolent bacteria within you, that is actually try to fill yourself up with, not to resist viruses or bacteria, or that is even in the case of penicillin, fungal energies or mold, but instead try to cultivate the ones that are helpful within you. And you have actually arrived at this already with, we would point to such a phenomenon as kombucha, for instance, which is these yeast cultures that you ingest as far as we believe. So these are some of the ways that are more helpful to think of preventative disease, to think of the fact that you are sort of an ecosystem unto yourself. And the problem isn't the virus or the bacteria, but it's essentially what virus or bacteria you are holding. So you can cultivate and hold army and hosts of benevolent small beings who also try to keep up your body, because it sustains them. This is the type of advice we're offering, and we hope that it serves you in your explorations of health and disease. Yes, and I think we are. I'll just check if there are any newcomers here with new questions. Yes, another use says, "Hi, we hear the precursors are already among us to get used to the ET's energies. Are they going to be more visible?" Yes. What do you mean by more visible? We are very happy about this question, and we do know what you mean, but it's essentially just you calling a spade, because notice that a lot of these beings that are coming through to you are coming through human vessels that are energetically orchestrated very differently from the channelers of the past, for instance. And that's not to say that channelers are the only precursors. You will find a lot of artists, scientists, explorers, different free thinkers, even physical specimens such as Usain Bolt or others. He's a very clear example, because he sort of ingrains a new reconfiguration of the human body, pressing it into something that it has been unable to do, thus also making you aware that the limitations that you perceive the human body to hold are actually more of a mental or a constructed kind, that they are anything universal. So that's helpful to say, but we would just like to know that what's happening here is essentially that a human being whose genome has been reconfigured in order to contain more of these astral energies is then able to share these astral energies with others, also reconfiguring them. And so the notion of precursors is in a sense static, that you would think this is a type of different human race, but these are simply human beings that have slightly different altercations, contain more of this energy, but they will look somewhat similar to other human beings. They won't feel completely similar to other human beings, and that's why they usually stand out quite a lot. But notice what you are moving into in ascension is essentially vibrality, higher telepathy, these resonances, and that's how you detect the precursors. It's not by pointing to the street and saying that dude, he kind of looks like an alien, though we would say that. Notice that a lot of your and our friend here is reminding us not to say anything mean, but we know human beings don't like that we comment on people's looks, but we would just say, if you look at a person such as Daryl Anka, who channels Bashar, you can quite clearly see that he looks a little alien. He has a little of this alien energy within him, and that actually goes for quite a lot of human beings who do this work, align with these energies. So that is the answer, and it becomes more and more visible to you as you tune more and more into orienting and identifying with the perceptions that your heart space is having. So that's the blessing that we would like to transmit, and know that this is indeed happening. Thank you. Hey, okay, another you. Give us an update on your experience in Mexico. Thank you. I think I'll finish off by telling you what the plans are, and then I'll sort of keep you updated on yeah, as I proceed. And thanks for asking, guys. And then I think we came to this one. I feel, AJ says, I feel called out on the playing video games thing. I've been doing that more lately than connecting with stuff outside, and I feel guilty. Haha, but Zelda is so fun. There it was. But as long as you're following your excitement, right, and often what I'll just reiterate this advice. It turns up a lot of in sessions. Often what happens is that people are on the path are also people who kind of push themselves into new realities. And so sometimes you will just feel inclined to have these type of downtime periods, because the best thing you can do is actually get out of your way and just spend some time not dealing with too much as you're going through all these changes. So and then again, if you're enjoying Zelda, it's I think that's lovely. And Sophia asks, third question, does the, and I hope I'm pronouncing this, Dui correctly, archaeological site in China have any alien origins? And if yes, what is the star system? Thanks. I hope we can bring that up in another future channeling, because I'm not quite sure if I know of this, or if I'm thinking of the right place. So I'll look it up, and then we'll get that answered some other time. And there we say, I love the different races they represent in the game. It's so interesting. Yes. And AJ says, honestly, I've had a dream where I woke up in a ship, and when I walked out into the corridor, I got this feeling that I shouldn't go left. Yet I did, and I found a big red reptilian there. Lol. I don't remember being too scared, but it ended shortly after. Oh, they can turn up in the weirdest places, the dragons, but there was probably some point to it. And yes. And Kate12 says, please, can you tell me what the Fendorian exchanges you said visited me? What was purpose and what was exchange? It is exciting to be told that. I want to ask, are you sure? Because it is exciting. Yes, we are laughing at you, friend, because it's not like we said something we didn't mean the first time, but then when you ask us if we are sure, we say yes, we actually did mean it, or the other way around. Of course we are sure. We wouldn't say anything to you that we weren't sure of. So that's the information we're relaying. But the point of this is, again, this type of energy shift. So our friend Salish, who has also been with us today, has pointed to some of those shifting energies in his own. We have explored some of those shifting energies in your energy field, and noticed that in your childhood, you also came more from. You also had connections to more of these fairy realms, of these more strange, not necessarily dark, but shadowy nether realities, and there was actually a part of you that was communicating with these beings. And you can go into this by exploring the concept of chirality. So you also have the ability already to actually shift yourself into a slightly different physical universe that's just it's adjacent to this. It's a part of this universe, but it's not necessarily completely visible here. So the more you begin to explore this childhood connection, the more you will begin to be able to turn your gaze into that perception of yourself as something that's shifting realities constantly. And that is where you came from as a child, and that's where you're going back to, this gift of shifting. And the Fendorians are very happy to reach out to you or communicate to you about this. If you turn your attention to them, they will lend you secrets and techniques you can use. Our blessings, friend. And Simon asks, can you ask, please, where is the oldest visible pyramid? Yes, this is a good question. We are sensing, and we have a hard time scanning the lexical information from this channel, but we do sense that it is located on the island of Sumatra, that is in Indonesia, and it will be approximately to 2/3 from moving from the west to the east of the island. It will be approximately 2/3 there, and it will appear more as a type of mound, and then there will be a type of temple structure above it, but it's built on top of the remnants of an old Lemurian pyramid. So there have been pyramidal center points here constantly, and some of the older pyramids in this area are below the sea surface, but we do sense this is the oldest one jutting out. Then if you were to move into the Saharan landscape, you would also approximately at the center of the desert find pyramids that are approximately 30,000 years old, though they have withered away greatly, and it would take some digging to uncover them, and so visible they are not exactly. Then there was actually also a pyramid, but here we are, this is not visible either, but there was actually approximately a pyramid 30,000 years ago constructed close to the holy center of the Australian continent, and that rock you call the Uluru or the Ayers Rock, and there have also been different places, that buildings that took advantage of the energetic currents that lay here still. And you can visit this place, and all of you that are here would register a very strange, sacred alien vibration to this place. And we do encourage you to go if your excitement is calling you, any of you who feel drawn towards this great old stone. And Adelina says, can you please give me more info about the counterpart in your civilization? I'm not so scared of you lately, so I would like to have more open contact. Wonderful. Yes. This counterpart, he calls himself Hans. It's a common Germanic boy's name also, and his task is to, he's like an antenna. He builds these relay stations. So what he does is he travels around planets. See, the way we colonize space, because we were quite physical, technological beings, were that we put up these relay stations, or these, so if you could think that there's a type of vanguard that's exploring, and then they're sort of putting up gas stations, which is essentially towers that can emit the non-physical energy, put it down, and then beam it into our physical space, which allows for our ships to then move further out into the unknown space, where we will find another suitable place to place an antenna, and there begin to explore from. And this is his task. So you can also think of yourself as the one who puts up these light stations, transmits energy, and then allows both for you and the members of your species to go exploring more into the unknown. And he says hi, and he also says that he's so glad that you're not scared of him, because he likes you a lot. So if you were to come, you could, in a meditation, also imagine he comes and visits you, and then he will take you on your, he will take you on his ship, and you can go exploring, and you will see some very interesting and different parts of the universe if you do. So many blessings from him also, and enjoy the ride. Okay, I think I'll wind. I think I'll wind down here. And do hybrids have a better sense of humor than true ETs? Okay, I'm a little too woozy here, guys. I think I'll just wind them. And okay, another you confirms that Bashar has mentioned that Daryl looks more like them because of all the years they have shared energy. Yes, exactly. That makes a lot of sense, right? Og Lisa says, tak for gode og interessante svar. Det har været spændende at høre Nyd Mexico, love from Denmark. Lisa, so good. Thank you. Denmark's finally showing the practice some love. It's good to hear from home. So thank you, og god søndag der over os. Hey, vi vinder EM i år, det bliver fedt. And sorry, you guys, that was a football comment. I'm so happy for the energy we shared here, and I'll bring them regularly, the live streams. I actually think maybe doing one next Sunday will work. At least a lot of people showed up here, and that was lovely. But I'm as you asked, I'm going to Oaxaca tomorrow, which is in southwest Mexico, and there I'm going to stay for a month and be in more country energies and recuperate and explore the Mexican landscape, and also do a lot of channeling and work and stuff. So I'm looking very much forward to that, and that will also mean more regular live streams. So much love and blessings to you guys, and I will call in the grace to give a final message here. Oh yes, friends. So we would just like to thank you for this creation. No, we were in a dire situation before humankind helped us. And through our communications, we have all been exploring a much brighter future. So if we would like to bring you a type of sing-song from our universe and then a blessing for you before we leave you on this lovely Sunday of yours. Ini ale unina itu itik in entakete today etetutula asatem inima entakete today anake une enikete ilu emme namena etiketa kupim. And see many configurations you have been through, all of you as human beings. But in this special place that you arrive at now, you are not only becoming something else, you are becoming all of those things at once. And such a pleasure and a joy it is to play with you on this playground of the many dimensions. We thank you for all the love, wisdom, help, and gifts that you have given us the grace. And we thank you for the exciting interactions to come and explorations in hybrid codes that will follow. Our deepest love to all of existence and to humanity in particular. Yes, I like Salis says England for the win against Denmark. Sorry. Yes, I imagine that I imagine that one of the greater football nations will will bring an end to our luck sooner than later. But we did win in '92, greatest essentially greatest moment since the 1600s in our nation's history. So we're counting on doing that again. And if you're not keeping up with soccer, then I hope you're having fun with something else. So so much love to you, everyone. Thank you for being here and what we shared today. And enjoy the 4th of July, whether or not you're grieving the loss of the colonies or still celebrating celebrating the birth of a nation. Much love to you guys. See you soon.